I used to think the worst way to end a marriage was a shouting match in a parking lot. Turns out, it can also end at a quiet kitchen table with a stack of bank statements and a knot in your throat you can't swallow. Bree and I had been married 4 years. We weren't rich in the storybook sense, but we were doing well. 2 good careers, some savings, a plan that actually felt like a plan. I was 34, working at a tech company that finally moved me from promise to performance. She was 32 in finance, sharp and polished, the kind of person who could turn a messy spreadsheet into a clean answer and make you believe in it. We traveled once or twice a year, split chores without keeping score, and told each other little jokes in grocery store aisles. It wasn't perfect, but it felt steady in a world that wasn't. I took a week of annual leave to breathe and finally do the thing we kept saying we would do, look at houses. Nothing wild, just something we could grow into. I made coffee, sat down with my laptop, and opened the joint account. I wasn't hunting for trouble. I was calculating down payments and closing costs and trying not to panic about the interest rates everyone on the news kept arguing about. Then I saw it. It wasn't the balance. The balance still looked fine at first glance. It was the withdrawals, not card charges with merchant names, not transfers to a known account. Withdrawals, cash, several of them. 1,000 here, 2,000 there, 7,000 one time, like someone had cut a clean square out of our month and walked away with it. The dates formed a rhythm I couldn't ignore, steady over 3 months, like a metronome ticking in the background while you pretend you don't hear it. I told myself there was an explanation. I wanted there to be an explanation. People make mistakes. Banks glitch. Maybe we had a cashier's check for something I forgot. Maybe. I opened the statements one by one and traced the pattern with my finger. Every time I reached the big 17,000, I felt a little tilt in my chair like the room was on a ship, and I was slow to find my balance. I could have snooped. I could have gone for the phone, the laptop, her purse. I didn't. That was my line, or at least I wanted it to be. If you're going to end something, end it with your head upright. She got home that night, tired and bright the way she always looked after closing something at work. I put the papers on the kitchen table and tried to keep my voice even. "Something's off," I said. "Can we go through this together?" The moment she saw the statements, her shoulders stiffened. Not a flinch, not surprise. Just a reflex like bracing for a cold wave. It told me more than any explanation could. "What is it?" she asked, already skimming. "Withdrawals," I said. "Cash. Over 3 months. About 16 and a half. She sat down slowly. The refrigerator hummed. A car door slammed outside, and then the hallway was quiet again. "That money," she said, "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how. There are a dozen ways to follow that sentence. Some good, most bad." I waited. "It's my brother," she said. "He's been in trouble with the restaurant. Pride won't let him ask you. He begged me not to say anything. I hated doing it this way. I'm sorry. I knew her brother. I knew the restaurant. I knew what a bad month could do to a small place with thin margins and a broken freezer at the wrong time. The story fit just well enough to slide into place. But the number, the way it appeared and disappeared, the secrecy. Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "If it's family, we handle it like family. I could have helped, or at least known." "He made me promise," she said. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "He said he'd pay it back. He didn't want you to think less of him." I breathed through it. I wanted to believe her. I told myself this was a clean line with a messy edge, not a web. "It can't happen again," I said. "Not like this. It's our money. We have to be a team. I'm not angry about helping. I'm angry about being kept out." I know she said, "You're right. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." And for 5 weeks it didn't. No withdrawals, no strange card charges, no late nights explained with a shrug. She was attentive in a way that felt careful, like someone stepping around broken glass while they sweep. I told myself we were okay. I looked at listings again. I put numbers into a mortgage calculator and let the future breathe a little. At the 5-week mark, a letter arrived. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't a flyer. It was a single sheet, no return address, no fancy printing. Just 4 words typed in a plain font that made my hands go cold. "This is your last warning. I mean business, I stood at the kitchen counter with the paper held between my thumb and forefinger like it might smear. My name wasn't on it. Neither was hers. But our address was typed on the envelope, and it had made it to our door. "Bree," I called. "Can you come here?" She walked in, saw the paper, and stopped. It was the pause that told me everything. Not confusion, recognition. A reflex again, that same brace. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. "No," she said too fast. "What is it?" I read it out loud. The words sounded smaller in the air and somehow worse. "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "It might be a scam. People do weird things." "Maybe," I said. "But it has our address, and the timing is interesting." She looked down, then away. The fridge hummed louder, or maybe I just noticed it more. "Does this have anything to do with the money?" I asked. "With your brother?" Silence. A long one. The kind where the clock in the hallway suddenly matters. "I didn't lie about the money being urgent," she said finally. "But I didn't tell you everything. Tell me now." She swallowed. "Someone from college. We were involved in something stupid back then. They reached out. They're threatening to bring it up if I don't pay." "What does something stupid mean?" "A mistake," she said, eyes fixed on a point just over my shoulder. I panicked. I'm not proud of it. I thought I could make it go away. "How much have you paid?" She stared at the paper. "About that what you saw. And you didn't come to me because I didn't want you to see me that way," she said. "Because I thought if I handled it, it would be over." I wanted to believe her again. I wanted to put this in the same box as the restaurant story and close the lid. But belief is a muscle. Once you strain it, it shakes when you need it most. "Who is it?" I asked. She hesitated. "It doesn't matter. I'm not paying them anymore." "It matters to me," I said. "If someone is threatening us, I need a name. We go to the police or a lawyer. We don't feed a fire and hope it dies." "No police," she said quickly. "Please, that will make it worse." "It is already worse," I said, trying to keep my voice from rising. "We have a threat letter in our kitchen and $16,000 missing. Worse is here." She shook her head and pressed her palm to her eyes. "Give me a day. I'll handle it." I didn't agree. I also didn't press. There is a moment in every crisis where more words only add smoke. I told her I needed air, grabbed my keys, and walked. I circled the block twice and came home to a quiet apartment that felt staged like a model unit in a building tour. The letter was back in the envelope in a drawer. Bree was in the bedroom scrolling a screen she didn't look at. That night, I lay awake and watched the ceiling fan make slow, careful revolutions. I thought about the clean way numbers should work and the messy way people do. I thought about how trust doesn't usually shatter. It loosens thread by thread until one day you notice you're holding separate pieces. In the morning, I made a decision I didn't want to make. If she wouldn't give me the truth, I would find it. Not to trap her, not to score points, to stop whatever this was from dragging us under. When she fell asleep, I took her phone from the nightstand and sat on the edge of the couch with a blanket over my knees like I was cold. Messages first. Nothing. Social apps. Nothing obvious. Too clean, which made it worse. Email. That was where the trail began. An anonymous address. Subject lines that said nothing and everything, pleading from her side. Short-clipped responses from the other. A first name hidden deep in a thread like a hook you don't see until it catches skin. Tate. By the time I looked up, dawn had turned the window a pale gray. I put the phone back where it belonged, washed my face, and watched the mirror settle. The story Bree told me was missing a chapter, and I had just found the title. I didn't want to be right. When I pulled her phone apart like an investigator, when I traced emails back through months of digital dust, I kept hoping I'd find something less than betrayal. A scammer. A misunderstanding. Something that made me look paranoid instead of betrayed. But the name Tate was there buried in the thread like a landmine, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The emails weren't just numbers and threats. They were desperation. I saw the way she begged him to please reconsider the way she promised she would make it worth his time if he stayed quiet. I saw his responses cold transactional, like he was writing invoices instead of extortion notes. Then came the attachment. I couldn't open it. My hands hovered over the file for longer than I'd like to admit, but I didn't click. The subject line and her terrified reply told me enough. He had proof. proof of something between them that should never have existed. And suddenly all the lies lined up. The cash withdrawals, the story about her brother, the dramatic tale of a hit and run in college. One by one, the excuses collapsed under the weight of a much simpler truth. Bree had been having an affair. When she tried to end it, Tate flipped the table and became her blackmailer. It was pathetic to read. Not just the betrayal, but the way she threw money at him like it might buy her life back. $16,000 in 3 months. Every message from him was colder than the last. Every message from her was shakier, shorter, more desperate. There was one line that broke me more than the rest. She asked him if he would stop threatening her if they started things again. It wasn't even about me anymore. It was about her trying to negotiate with the very man who was squeezing her. He ignored her offer, of course. Why settle for scraps when he had proof that could blow everything up? I closed the email, shut the laptop, and sat in the silence of our apartment. The fridge hummed like it always did. Outside traffic whispered by. Inside, it felt like the walls were leaning in. I thought about confronting Tate, about storming into the mess like some movie hero. But reality isn't a movie. Even if I caught him, even if I screamed in his face, what would it change? He already had everything he needed to wreck us. To wreck me. And then the thought came, why should I fight him at all? Tate wasn't my problem. He was Bree's. She'd chosen him. She'd lied to cover for him. She'd bled our account dry to keep him quiet. No, he wasn't my battle. My battle was the person who had stood next to me in a church 4 years ago and promised honesty, loyalty, and partnership. So I made a plan. First step, see a lawyer. Quietly, carefully, before she had any idea that the walls were already closing in. I scheduled a consultation and laid out the facts, the withdrawals, the emails, the proof. The lawyer didn't even blink. You've got her, he said. Get your ducks in a row, don't show your hand too early, and you'll come out clean. She won't fight, she can't. It was brutal hearing it put so simply, but it was also true. For 3 more days, I acted normal. I smiled at breakfast. I asked about her day. I even let her pick the movie one night and pretended to watch while the image of the word Tate burned in my brain like a watermark. And then came the confrontation. We sat down at the same kitchen table where I'd first asked about the withdrawals. This time I didn't bring papers. I brought silence. Silence until she started to squirm. Is something wrong, she asked. You said you told me the truth about that money, I said. I did, she said quickly. Too quickly. Then who's Tate? The name hit her like a brick. She froze. Her eyes widened, then flooded. She didn't even ask how I knew, she just broke. Her tears weren't for me. They were for herself, for the realization that every dollar, every lie, every sleepless night of scheming had been wasted. Tate hadn't confessed. She hadn't slipped up. I had found her. And in her mind, that meant her entire gamble had collapsed. She begged. Words poured out, half apologies, half bargains. She said it was a mistake. She said it was over. She said she loved me. She said anything she thought might land. But here's the truth I had learned the hard way. When someone shows you how little your trust means to them, you can't tape it back together with pretty words. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't even cry. I just looked at her steady until the begging started to fade into silence. You don't get it, I told her. I'm not angry because you cheated. I'm angry because we had a good life and you threw it away for nothing. For someone like him. And now there's nothing left to save. I slid the divorce papers across the table. She stared at them like they were written in another language. You're free now, I said. Free to run to Tate. Free to lie to someone else. Free to live without me. Her sobs cracked the air, but I didn't flinch. I had already done my mourning in the hours between reading those emails and making my plan. That night, while she wept on the couch, I went into the bedroom, packed her a bag, and called a car to her sister's place. When it arrived, I set the bag by the door, handed her the handle, and told her to go. For the first time since it all began, I felt something close to peace. Not relief, not joy, just peace. But I knew this wasn't the end. There were still negotiations accounts to divide, assets to untangle, and there was still Tate lurking on the edge of it all like a shadow waiting for one last chance to strike. The difference now, he wasn't my problem anymore. He was hers. When you finally see the truth, the world doesn't crash down all at once. It falls in steady pieces, papers signed, keys returned, accounts divided. It feels like dismantling a house you built with your own hands, brick by brick, until all that's left is the empty lot. I had done the hardest part already, pulling the mask off. Now came the cleanup. Before I even confronted Bree with the name Tate, I had sat with a divorce lawyer. He was calm, clinical, almost surgical about it. You'll want to protect your income stream, keep proof of the withdrawals, and avoid emotional blow-ups. She'll have no leverage if you're steady. That was the word I held on to, steady. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to let her chaos turn me into something I wasn't. After I pushed the papers across the kitchen table and told her it was over, she didn't sign. She cried instead, begged for a second chance, promised to cut ties with Tate. But you can't glue a vase together once it's been ground into dust. I let her cry, then packed her bag myself and sent her to her sister's house. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. She won't fight it, I said. I saw it in her face. And I was right. When negotiations started, Bree was a shell of herself. All the confidence, the sharpness, the fire I'd once admired it was gone. She sat across from me, eyes red, voice shaking, barely raising an argument. It was as if the weight of her own lies had already pinned her to the floor. We split the joint account, but I made sure to recover everything she had siphoned away, and then some. 16,000, out 20+ thousand back under my name. She didn't even flinch. The apartment was a rental, but I got to keep it. Alimony. Not even on the table. My lawyer made it clear, and she didn't fight. For someone who had played games for months, Bree surrendered with startling ease. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she knew that dragging it out would only make her humiliation worse. Or maybe she finally saw herself clearly. The woman who lied about her brother invented a hit and run and paid off her affair partner until she bled herself dry. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just signed where I needed to, shook my lawyer's hand, and went home to an apartment that suddenly felt bigger than it ever had. She tried once, weeks later, to come back. Showed up at the door, mascara-streaked hands, trembling. I opened with a golf club in my hand, not to swing, just to send a message. "Don't," I said. She backed away without another word. And Tate, I thought about him more than I wanted to. Thought about sending him an email telling him the game was over, that I knew everything. But in the end, I didn't bother. Let him keep circling Bree like a vulture. Let him demand money she didn't have anymore. He wasn't my problem. He never had been. He was just the mirror she chose to stand in front of, showing her the ugliest parts of herself. What stung most wasn't the affair itself. It was the stupidity of it all. We had a good life. Not perfect, but good. Enough money, enough stability, enough love, or so I thought. She hadn't run from a broken marriage. She had run from contentment, as if it wasn't enough for her to simply be okay. And she paid the price. Me? I walked away clean. No debt, no alimony. My career still solid, my name still mine. I hadn't lost anything permanent except the illusion of a faithful partner. Sometimes at night I catch myself wondering if she thinks about me. If she regrets not just the affair, but the way she handled it. The lies layered on lies, the desperate withdrawals, the pathetic emails to a man who treated her like a paycheck. But I stopped myself from wandering too far down that road. Her regrets are not my responsibility. Her shame is not mine to carry. All I know is this: I gave her loyalty. I gave her honesty. I gave her a life built on trust. She answered with betrayal, deceit, and silence. So I cut the last tie. And when the ink dried on the divorce papers, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not joy, not triumph, just freedom. Freedom from her lies, freedom from her shadow, freedom to start again. And for the first time in a long time, the numbers finally added up. Here's the next story. There are moments you remember with photographic clarity: the color of the walls, the smell in the air, the way a light flickers on a shiny surface. For me, it was a Tuesday evening in our kitchen in Austin, Texas. The oven timer had just chirped. The honey glaze on the salmon caught the candlelight like glass. I was wearing the silly Kiss the Cook apron Rebecca bought me 3 years ago as a joke. And I was proud, ridiculously proud, because I'd pulled off her favorite meal down to the last detail. White roses in a short vase. The good china. The wedding gift stemware I swore we'd use more often. We'd been married 7 years. I'm 34, a marketing director at a mid-sized tech firm. On paper, life looked settled. A neat house, a decent car calendar reminders for things like aerate the lawn and check the smoke detectors. We weren't the flashy kind of couple you notice. We were the dependable ones who return shopping carts and send thank you notes. Lately, though, there had been a drift. I couldn't measure Rebecca working late, glancing at her phone with that faraway half-smile evenings that ended with "I'm tired, maybe this weekend." I told myself it was a season the kind you ride out if you love someone and keep your mouth shut long enough to let the weather change. I heard her car, then the front door, then heels across hardwood. My heart did that stupid skip, same as it did on our third date when she walked toward me in a blue dress and made everything else go quiet. I wiped my hands on a towel and called, "In the kitchen." Rebecca appeared in the doorway in a black dress I'd never seen before. It fit like it was tailored. Her hair had more volume than the office ponytail I was used to, and the makeup was carefully done like she'd hired instructions. She looked incredible, and wrong for a Tuesday. She barely glanced at the candles or the plates. Her thumb was already moving across her phone. "Wow," I said, grinning anyway, because muscle memory is powerful. "You look amazing. What's the occasion?" "This." She glanced up, then back down, just felt like dressing up. I gestured toward the dining room. "Perfect timing. Your favorite honey-glazed, salmon-roasted vegetables wild rice," and I held up the small bouquet white roses. Rebecca stepped into the dining room and stood at the head of the table. She took it in the flowers, the plates, the little details I'd fussed over, and tilted her head. "This is cute," she said. "Cute. Not beautiful, not thoughtful. Cute like a school project with glue on the edges." I felt the tiniest wobble somewhere in my chest and pushed it aside. "I thought we could have a nice evening," I said, pulling out her chair. "We haven't really talked in weeks. I miss you." She typed something, then set the phone down. "That's sweet, Jake. Really. But I can't stay long." The wobble deepened. "Can't stay long. On a Tuesday. Do we have something?" "I'm going out," she said, reaching for her purse. "Out where?" "Drinks with friends from work. We just closed the Johnson account." "On a Tuesday," I repeated, and it sounded like an accusation. "In that dress." She met my eyes, chin lifting a fraction. "I like to look nice. Is that a problem?" I could hear myself already on the wrong side of a tone I didn't want. "No problem. It just feels fancy for drinks." She exhaled sharply as if my words were gnats. "The dinner looks cute, Jake. Really. But I'm going." The word friends had a pause in front of it that clanged in my ears. My stomach tightened. I tried calm. "How late will you be?" "I don't know. Don't wait up." Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it and something transformed in her face, a quick, bright spark I hadn't seen in months. The kind that says yes, the kind that used to be mine. "Who's texting?" The question fell out before I could stop it. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You've been checking it since you walked in," I said, soft, careful. "Whoever just texted made you smile like that." Her cheeks colored anger, not embarrassment. "Are you monitoring my phone now?" "I'm not monitoring anything. I'm seeing my wife more excited about a text than the dinner in front of her." She didn't answer. The silence between us went thin and tight like a wire. "Look," she said finally, "I appreciate the effort, but I made plans. You can't spring a whole dinner without telling me and expect me to cancel." "I'm your husband," I said before I could file the edge off it. "I don't need an appointment to cook for you." "Our house," she corrected softly, and for the first time I heard the distance in those two words. She picked up her keys. The candles flickered. Somewhere under the honey and rosemary, the salmon began to cool. "Rebecca, wait," I said. "Is there something you want to tell me?" A long beat. The grandfather clock in the living room clicked past another second. She turned. Her face was new to me, flat, practiced like a mask you put on to answer a hard question at work. "The dinner was cute," she said again, voice even. "But I'm going out with my boyfriend now." The word hit like a clean break. No preface, no cushion. The room didn't spin. It narrowed. "Your boyfriend," I said, the syllables heavy. "You heard me?" she replied, annoyed at my slowness. You have a boyfriend, and you're married to me. For now, she said, almost a shrug. For how long? She looked past me as if calculating what she could afford to say. Does it matter? It matters to me. 3 months, she said. Just like that. 3 months of late nights and distant smiles and me making more effort, more dinners, more bouquets. 3 months of reading tea leaves for no reason when the letters were already painted in red. Who is he? Jake, don't. Who is he? David, she said. He works at my firm. Of course. It explained the dress, the new hair, the schedule shifting like sand. How old? She frowned. What does that? How old? 28. Younger than me? Younger than her. It didn't matter, and it mattered. And you're in love with him, I said? It wasn't a question. I could see it in the posture, the glow she kept trying to smother. Yes, she said, simple as weather. There is something almost kinder about a lie in moments like that. A lie leaves you a handhold. The truth leaves you the floor. So tonight, I said, hearing a steadiness, I didn't feel you're going to walk out of our house past the dinner I made to meet your boyfriend. Don't use that tone, she snapped. What tone should I use? I asked. The one for when your wife of 7 years tells you she's in love with a coworker and is leaving. What tone is that? Her phone buzzed again. She picked it up without apology, read, and smiled, the way you smile when the world you want sends proof it wants you back. She typed quickly, slipped the phone into her purse, and looked at me with a patience that was really impatience. I really need to go, she said. Of course, I answered. Wouldn't want to keep him waiting. You're being dramatic. Maybe I said untying the apron, or maybe I'm finally seeing things as they are. She stood at the doorway and hesitated like an actor who's forgotten the next line. We'll talk tomorrow, she said. Or soon. David and I might go away this weekend. Of course. The weekend getaway. The clean replacement for anniversaries you no longer remember. Go, I said. Your boyfriend is waiting. She left. The door closed with an ordinary click that didn't match the size of the change it announced. I watched her taillights disappear. The house went quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. I walked back to the dining room and looked at the table. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 candles making soft circles of light, the smell of warm honey and citrus. I poured wine, something good I'd been saving, and sat down in the chair at the head of the table because someone should. I ate. The salmon was perfect. The vegetables caramelized at the edges gave under the fork with just the right resistance. The wild rice had that nutty chew she loved. She was right about one thing, it was cute. Cute that I thought a home-cooked dinner could compete with a secret. Cute that I believed the drift was fixable if I stood still and waited for her to drift back. Cute that I didn't recognize the moment when we became a past tense in her head. I cleared the dishes, blew out the candles, and stood in the kitchen with the bouquet still bright in the center of the table. I wasn't numb. I wasn't even broken. I was awake. The months of second-guessing rearranged themselves into a straight line. The late nights. The laughter at text messages I wasn't invited to hear. The carefully curated stories about client dinners and deadlines. The new dress on a Tuesday. I went upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, though I didn't say it yet, and sat at the desk. I opened the laptop and stared at a blank search bar. I typed his name, David Mitchell. 28. Account executive at her firm. I found public photos, rooftop pools, wine bars, group shots cropped just right. In one, you could see the necklace I gave her for her last birthday, the one she cried over because it was so thoughtful. Anger rose like a tide, slow but inevitable. Not the loud kind, the focused kind. The kind that writes lists and builds plans. I wasn't going to throw plates. I wasn't going to call him or call her or call anyone. I was going to see clearly. I was going to gather facts. I was going to decide what my life looked like without the person who had just opted out of it. Before bed, my phone buzzed. Rebecca. We'll talk soon and figure everything out. I hope you understand I just want to be happy. I stared at it, then deleted it. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Downstairs, the flowers drank water in the dark. Upstairs, I lay awake and listened to the small sounds of a house settling wood, expanding plumbing ticking. I thought about vows and calendars and the quiet ways people rewrite stories while you're still living in the old chapters. I watched the digital clock switch from 11:59 to 12:00, and with it, something in me crossed a line. I wasn't going to be the man who got left and then waited politely to be told what came next. I was going to write what came next. And when morning came, I would start. The night after Rebecca left was long and hollow. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the slow rhythm of its blades. Every turn seemed to scrape at me, reminding me that I was alone in a bed that had once been ours. My mind replayed her words on a loop. Dinner was cute, but I'm going out with my boyfriend now. I could still see her face when she said it, flat unapologetic, as though she were giving me the weather report. The next morning, I woke to silence. Her side of the closet looked different, emptier than I remembered. Not completely bare, but light enough to prove she had been moving her belongings out little by little. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months, and I had been too blind to see it. I made coffee and sat at the dining table where the roses were already wilting. The salmon from last night still lingered faintly in the air, sweet and sour all at once. I should have been broken, maybe even desperate. Instead, what I felt was sharper. Anger. Not the kind that makes you yell or throw things, but the kind that tightens behind your ribs and whispers, "Don't you dare let them walk away without consequence." I opened my laptop again. David Mitchell, 28 years old. Account executive at Henderson & Associates. Graduated a few years ago. Lived downtown in one of those high-rise apartments with a rooftop pool and a concierge desk. A silver BMW sat in the garage, likely courtesy of his father. Scrolling through his Instagram, I found the curated version of his life dinners at places Rebecca and I had never gone, weekends at the Lake Gym Selfies company events, and then buried among them the pieces that made my chest burn, Rebecca at his side. Always carefully framed to hide the ring on her left hand, but wearing the necklace I'd bought her last birthday. Laughing with her head tilted toward him. Looking younger, lighter, as if the last 7 years had been a costume she was finally shrugging off. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I didn't throw my coffee across the room. I took a deep breath and told myself, good. Every smile, every photo, every lie, they're all evidence. See, Texas law doesn't make proving adultery easy, but it does make it matter. If I could show that Rebecca had been using marital funds to bankroll her affair, if I could present undeniable proof that she had betrayed not just me, but the partnership our finances were built on, then she wouldn't walk away with half of everything. She wouldn't walk away at all. So I started digging. Our bank statements told their own story. For 3 months, charges appeared at restaurants I'd never heard of, wine bars I'd never visited, hotels Rebecca had sworn were work trips. On one credit card statement, there were purchases from a high-end lingerie store that she had never once worn at home. Salon visits, hair, nails, treatments scheduled conveniently on nights she said she had late meetings. Every receipt, every line item was a small betrayal typed in neat black ink. But financial records weren't enough. I needed something undeniable. That's when I remembered the iCloud account. Months ago, Rebecca had asked me to sync her new work laptop to our family cloud for convenience. She said it would help her work from home. What she didn't realize was that every photo, message, and email she sent on that device was quietly backing up where I could see it. It took 5 minutes to log in. What I found there wasn't just proof. It was a window into the life she had been living behind my back. Hundreds of messages. At first, they were tame jokes about office politics, compliments on presentations, light banter. But within weeks, they were messaging from morning to night. "Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you after work. Don't tell Jake you're out late again." The kind of everyday intimacy that cuts deeper than anything else because it shows how completely I had been replaced. Worse were the conversations about me. Rebecca had told him details about our marriage that should never have left our walls, my habits, my routines, even my insecurities. And David encouraged it. He told her she deserved better, that she had wasted years with someone who didn't appreciate her. He positioned himself as the solution, the upgrade. By the second month, they weren't hiding their intentions anymore. They talked about divorcing me. They talked about what kind of house they'd buy together, whether they wanted kids, how soon they could make it official. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was building a new life, brick by brick, using the rubble of our marriage as her foundation. The final blow was a message from Rebecca sent just hours after our ruined dinner. She described the scene to David in detail, how I'd spent 2 hours cooking, how pathetically romantic it had been, how clueless I looked standing there with roses while she was already planning her weekend getaway. She laughed about it. Laughed. To him. Using the phone I paid for on the network I managed in the house I worked to provide. I sat there staring at the screen until the words blurred. Then slowly, something in me shifted. This wasn't going to be a story where Jake Morrison was the fool. This wasn't going to be the one where my wife left me in ruins while she rode off into the sunset with her shiny new boyfriend. If Rebecca thought I was going to let her rewrite our history as some tragic tale of a tired marriage and a woman finding happiness with someone younger, she was mistaken. If she thought she could spend my money, destroy my trust, and walk away without consequence, she was underestimating me. I started saving everything, screenshots of texts, copies of emails, records of charges on our joint accounts. I printed them out, highlighted dates, built a timeline. By the time I was finished, I had a stack of evidence 2 inches thick. But I didn't stop there. I thought about her office, the company she and David both worked for. Strict corporate policies against relationships between managers and subordinates. Rules about professional conduct. Rules Rebecca had signed when she was promoted. Every message I had showed not only betrayal but violations of those rules. I thought about her family, her parents who always praised her as the golden child, her siblings who believed she could do no wrong. They deserved to know the truth. I thought about David's family too. His father, the successful businessman. His ex-girlfriend, the one who had hinted online that David had betrayed her. All of them would want to see who he really was. By the time the sun rose on Saturday, I knew exactly what I was going to do. This wouldn't be a confrontation in the heat of the moment. It would be precise. It would be controlled. It would be devastating in all the ways Rebecca and David never saw coming. They thought they had written the ending. They were wrong. This was only the beginning. Saturday morning arrived with a strange calm. The house felt lighter, emptier. But my mind was sharper than it had been in weeks. Rebecca had taken pieces of her life with her, but she had left me everything I needed to turn the tables. I started by organizing the evidence. Every screenshot, every text message, every email thread from the iCloud backup was printed and placed in order. I highlighted dates, circled names, drew arrows, linking financial records with messages. By the time I was done my dining table, the same table she called cute looked like a war room. A stack of proof nearly 2 inches thick sat waiting. I slid one copy into a folder for my lawyer, Tom Richardson. Tom had handled contracts for me in the past, and I knew he was ruthless when it came to betrayal. Adultery with financial misconduct, he had told me over the phone. In Texas, that's dynamite. She won't see a penny she doesn't deserve. Hearing those words was the first time I'd smiled in days. But my revenge wasn't going to stop at divorce court. No, Rebecca had chosen to humiliate me, to mock my efforts as pathetically romantic. She had chosen to betray me publicly while pretending at home. So my answer was going to be public too. The first target was Henderson and Associates Marketing, the place where Rebecca and David had met, where their affair had thrived. Corporate policies are clear about workplace relationships, especially between managers and junior employees. Rebecca was David's superior. That made their affair more than personal, it was professional misconduct. I drafted an email, calm and professional, attaching screenshots of their texts that referenced late-night office encounters and company credit cards used for their celebrations. I included hotel receipts charged to our joint account that matched days she claimed to be at work conferences. The email went not only to human resources but also to the company president and managing partners. I hit send, leaned back, and felt a weight shift. Next came the families. Rebecca's parents had always treated me like the lucky one. Their daughter was the golden child, successful and flawless. They never missed a chance to brag about her job, her marriage, her perfect life. They deserved to see the real Rebecca, the one who spent joint savings on hotels and dresses for her 28-year-old boyfriend. I mailed them a packet with a letter attached, factual, not emotional. No vulgarity, just dates, receipts, and proof. Her siblings got the same. Even her grandmother, who still mailed us Christmas cards, received a shorter version. I wasn't cruel enough to send everything, but I sent enough for the truth to be undeniable. David's family didn't escape either. His father, a respected businessman in Dallas, was known for his traditional values. I sent him a detailed account of his son's role in destroying my marriage. No exaggeration, no falsehoods, just evidence. His son's own words were damning enough. And because I knew it would sting, I sent a copy to David's ex-girlfriend, Sarah. Her social media posts months earlier hinted at betrayal, but now she would know exactly why her relationship ended. Something told me she'd share the information far and wide, but the masterpiece was still ahead. Rebecca had given me access to her iCloud, which meant I had her saved passwords, and thanks to her trust in David, I had his too. Within an hour, I was logged into their social media accounts. I didn't rage post. I didn't insult. I crafted carefully worded confessions, apologies for the affair, acknowledgments of betrayal, clear admissions that they had used company time and resources for personal indulgences. Every post was laced with the same cold precision Rebecca had used when she said, "I'm going out with my boyfriend." On her Facebook, I wrote, "I want to apologize to my family and friends. For 4 months, I have been having an affair with a younger co-worker. I lied to my husband, used our shared finances to fund secret trips, and betrayed the vows I made. I know I've let many of you down." On David's Instagram, I posted, "I have been in a relationship with a married woman, Rebecca Morrison, for months. I helped her lie to her husband and encouraged her to break her vows. I take responsibility for my actions and the pain caused to others." I scheduled the posts for 2:00 p.m. on a Saturday, the exact time most people are idly scrolling through their feeds. When they went live, the comments poured in. Shock, anger, disappointment. Her sister called her a disgrace. Her mother wrote, "I raised you better than this." David's fraternity brothers mocked him. His own mother commented that she was ashamed. Rebecca must have been in the middle of one of her errands when it hit. I watched from my truck parked a few houses down as she pulled into our driveway. Her phone was pressed to her ear before she even stepped out of the car. She hurried inside, shoulders hunched, like she was already carrying the weight. 15 minutes later, I called the house phone. She answered, frantic. "Jake, thank God you have to help me. Someone hacked my Facebook. They posted, 'No one hacked you, Rebecca,'" I said calmly. "That was me." Silence. I could hear her breathing sharp and uneven. "What do you mean you can't?" "I mean everything I posted was true. Every dollar you spent, every text you sent, every time you chose him over me. The world knows now." Her voice cracked. "Jake, please, this will ruin everything. My job, my reputation." "Already handled," I interrupted. "HR has your messages. The partners know. You violated company policy, Rebecca. Both of you did. Monday morning you won't have a job to protect." She started crying. Real sobs, but there was no sympathy left in me. "You destroyed your life when you decided to cheat," I told her. "All I did was make sure everyone knew the truth." Her sobs turned into begging. She promised to fix it, to delete the posts, to make it right. She offered anything. But when I told her my conditions: end the affair, quit her job, sign a post-nuptial agreement, making sure she got nothing if she ever cheated again, she went quiet. Finally, she whispered, "I can't. I love him, Jake. I can't pretend I don't." "Then live with your choices," I said, and hung up. When I returned home an hour later, she was gone. The only thing she left behind was a house key on the kitchen counter and a short note. "I'm sorry." It was far too late for sorry. And as the weekend unfolded, the consequences spread like wildfire. By Monday morning, the first cracks had widened into full collapses. I didn't have to wait long for news. Henderson and Associates prided itself on being family first and values-driven. Those words were plastered across their website annual reports and recruiting brochures. An affair between a senior manager and a subordinate wasn't just messy, it was poison to their carefully crafted image. By 9:30 a.m., my lawyer called. "She's done," Tom said bluntly. HR pulled her in first thing. David, too. They've both been terminated effective immediately. I thanked him and hung up, staring at the quiet house around me. For 7 years, Rebecca had strutted through life with the air of someone untouchable. The golden daughter, the respected colleague, the woman who had everything under control. Now, in less than 72 hours, the mask had cracked and fallen. But the corporate fallout was just the beginning. Rebecca's family lit up my phone with voicemails on Sunday night, but I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The packets I'd mailed had already done their work. Her parents left 2 messages, the first full of confusion, the second sharp with disappointment. Her sister's voicemail was shorter, angrier. "How could you do this to Jake? Don't call me again." Even her grandmother, who had always sent warm cards with careful handwriting, had mailed back a letter 1 page of tight, trembling script. "You've shamed this family. I don't recognize the woman you've become." By Monday, Rebecca wasn't just out of a job, she was isolated. Meanwhile, David's world was burning too. His father had always been quick to showcase his son's bright future, but now his business contacts had seen the social media confessions. Word traveled fast. David's trust fund was cut off, his BMW repossessed. He was ordered to leave the apartment downtown. By Tuesday, he was back in his parents' house in Dallas. I heard through Sarah, his ex-girlfriend. She found me on Facebook after the posts went viral. Her message was short. "Thank you for exposing him. I always knew he was rotten, but now everyone else sees it too." I didn't respond, but I allowed myself a grim smile. Rebecca, however, wasn't finished with me. By Wednesday, she was at my office. My assistant buzzed me voice tight. "There's a woman here, says it's urgent. She won't leave." I walked out into the lobby, and there she was. No heels, no sleek dress, just jeans, a sweater, and eyes rimmed with sleepless red. For a moment, she looked like the woman I had married. Then she opened her mouth. "Jake, please, you've destroyed me. My career, my family, my reputation." "Correction," I said evenly. "You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights." She flinched, but pressed on. "We can fix this. You can delete the posts. You can tell people you acted out of anger." "Please, Jake. I don't deserve this." I almost laughed. "Don't deserve this. You lied for 4 months. You drained our joint account to fund your dates. You mocked me to your boyfriend. You announced you had a boyfriend while standing in my kitchen. And now you want me to rewrite history so you can crawl back into polite society." She looked down, shame flickering across her face, then whispered, "I just want my life back." "You made your choice," I told her. "Now live with it." When she reached out, I stepped back. My assistant was already hovering. "Escort her out," I said. Rebecca didn't fight. She walked away, shoulders hunched, the lobby door closing softly behind her. The following weeks were brutal for her, not me. Friends who once admired us as a perfect couple now crossed the street to avoid her. Former colleagues ignored her calls. Family stopped returning her texts. The world she had built around her image crumbled until all she had left was David, and even that didn't last. Because love built on betrayal rarely survives the pressure of real life. 3 months later, word reached me through mutual friends they were over. The fairy tale had collapsed under unemployment, financial strain, and mutual blame. Rebecca was working as a receptionist at a tiny firm in San Antonio, earning a fraction of her old salary. David was pushing insurance policies at his uncle's agency, stripped of his downtown shine. As for me, I wasn't gloating. I wasn't dancing on the ashes. I was simply steady. The divorce proceedings moved forward cleanly thanks to the mountain of evidence Tom and I had prepared. There were no drawn-out battles, no courtroom drama. Rebecca had no leverage, no alimony, no claim to my retirement, no share of the house equity. She kept her car and whatever clothes she hadn't already moved out. That was it. When the judge stamped the final decree 6 months later, I walked out of the courthouse feeling something I hadn't felt in months, peace. But Rebecca wasn't quite finished. Half a year after the divorce, a letter arrived, her handwriting on the envelope. Inside, pages filled with apologies. She wrote about regret, about realizing David wasn't real love, about missing the stability of our marriage. She begged for another chance. I read it once, folded it back into the envelope, and dropped it in the trash. Because some choices cannot be undone. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven. Rebecca once called my dinner cute. But the truth was, my revenge had been instant and final. The day the judge finalized the divorce, I walked out of the courthouse into a bright Texas afternoon. People around me carried on like it was just another weekday. But for me, it was the end of a chapter that had started with candles on a dining table and ended with a stack of evidence thicker than any vow book. I wasn't celebrating. Divorce doesn't feel like victory even when you know you were right. It feels like pulling out a rotten tooth, necessary, relieving, but still raw. Yet under the soreness, there was clarity. I hadn't just survived. I had walked away intact. She hadn't taken the house. She hadn't taken my retirement. She hadn't taken my peace of mind. Rebecca, meanwhile, was slipping down the ladder she had once climbed so confidently. Friends filled me in even when I didn't ask. She'd taken a receptionist job in San Antonio, far from the downtown office where she once strutted through hallways in heels commanding attention. Her parents had quietly removed her from their will. Her sister refused to answer her calls. Even her grandmother, the one who always sent handwritten Christmas cards, had stopped. And David, he was gone too. The man who had been her real love, her bright future, was now selling insurance in his uncle's office, living under his parents' roof. The BMW was gone. The rooftop pool was gone. The shine had worn off. Without the gloss of company parties and trust fund weekends, they didn't last 3 months after the divorce papers came through. For a while, I wondered if I should feel pity. Rebecca had thrown away a marriage for the thrill of something new, only to find herself with less than she started. But pity never came. Because the truth was, she hadn't just betrayed me, she'd humiliated me. She'd stood in our kitchen and declared, "I'm going out with my boyfriend," like I was an obstacle, not a partner. She hadn't slipped, she hadn't made a mistake. She had chosen. And choices have consequences. The months after the divorce, I rebuilt. Slowly. I stayed in the house. At first, every corner reminded me of her. The herb garden by the window she once tended. The cabinets I had installed with her by my side. But with time, those memories stopped feeling sharp. I repainted the kitchen. I replaced the bedroom furniture. Piece by piece, the house became mine again. I also rebuilt myself. I started going to the gym more regularly, not out of spite, but out of discipline. I reconnected with old friends I'd let drift during the marriage. I spent weekends exploring Austin instead of sitting at home waiting for Rebecca's car to pull in late. Freedom, I realized, wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was being able to breathe in your own house without waiting for the other shoe to drop. A year later, I met Jennifer. We didn't meet through work or at a bar. We met at the grocery store of all places. She laughed at the way I struggled to reach something on the top shelf, and I laughed back. It was small, ordinary nothing like the drama that had blown my life apart. And that was what made it special. Jennifer valued the little things. She didn't roll her eyes at home-cooked dinners. She appreciated them. She didn't see loyalty as a burden. She saw it as the baseline for love. Being with her reminded me that my worth wasn't defined by Rebecca's betrayal. I was still capable of trust. I was still capable of being trusted. 6 months into dating Jennifer, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Rebecca's handwriting. Inside were pages of apologies. She admitted she'd made a mistake, admitted David was nothing but infatuation, admitted she missed the stability of our life together. She asked if we could meet, if there was any chance of reconciliation. I read it once carefully, then set it down. For a moment, I thought about the early years, our first apartment, the road trip to New Mexico, the way she used to laugh when I sang off-key in the car. I thought about the person she had been before the lies before David. But then I thought about that night in the kitchen, the black dress, the cold tone, the word boyfriend delivered like a verdict, and I realized the Rebecca I remembered no longer existed. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and dropped it in the trash. Some mistakes you don't get to undo. Some bridges once burned never get rebuilt. Now when I look back, I don't feel anger. I don't even feel sadness. I feel distance. The kind of distance that turns a wound into a scar permanent, but no longer painful. Rebecca once called my dinner cute. But what she never understood was that my revenge wasn't about dinner or social media posts or even divorce settlements. My revenge was living well without her. My revenge was standing tall when she expected me to crumble. And that's exactly what I did. It's strange how a life can change course in a single evening. One sentence, one moment, one truth spoken in the wrong kitchen at the wrong time. Rebecca thought she was ending our marriage that Tuesday night when she told me she was going out with her boyfriend. What she didn't realize was that she was also ending her version of the story. From that moment on, I was the one writing the pages. The fallout from her choices was swift and brutal. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't dance on the ashes, but I also didn't step in to shield her from the consequences. She had made her bed, and for the first time she was forced to lie in it without me smoothing the sheets. Months passed. Our divorce was finalized. She was cut off from the job that once defined her, from the family that once held her up, from the friends who once envied her perfect marriage. She went from the polished professional everyone admired to the cautionary tale whispered about at gatherings. David faded just as quickly. The man who was supposed to be her fresh start, her true love, became little more than another chapter in her spiral. Without the luxury apartment, the expensive car, or the constant flow of attention, the shine wore off. Their relationship collapsed under the weight of reality. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. I stayed in the house not because I was clinging to the past, but because I refused to let betrayal drive me out of my own home. I made it mine again. Fresh paint, new furniture, different routines. The herb garden by the window became mine alone. I tended it not because she once cared for it, but because I did. I built back my savings, strengthened my career, and focused on myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't pouring energy into fixing something that was already broken. I was building something new, something steady. Meeting Jennifer was proof that the world doesn't end just because someone betrays you. Sometimes it begins again in quieter, better ways. She valued the very things Rebecca had taken for granted: honesty, small acts of love, loyalty. She never called my efforts cute. She called them thoughtful, meaningful, exactly what she wanted. And in her eyes, I found a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. Rebecca's final letter, the one where she asked for reconciliation, wasn't surprising. People often regret when the grass they thought was greener turns out to be scorched. She asked for another chance, said she missed the stability, said she finally realized what she had lost. But regret isn't the same as love. Regret isn't enough to rebuild trust. I threw the letter away. Because here's the truth. Some doors once closed should never be reopened. Some betrayals cut too deep, and some lessons are best left to those who ignored the warnings in the first place. Looking back, I no longer see myself as the victim. I see myself as the man who stood his ground, who refused to be humiliated quietly, who answered betrayal with truth. My revenge wasn't about shouting or fighting. It wasn't even about the evidence I collected or the posts I made. My revenge was walking away with my dignity intact while Rebecca lost everything she thought she couldn't live without. My revenge was showing her and showing myself that I wasn't the man she believed she could discard. And most of all, my revenge was building a life beyond her. The dinner she called cute is long gone. The roses wilted, the candles burned down the meal eaten in silence. But in a way, that night became the foundation for everything that came after. The night I stopped being blind. The night I stopped excusing her distance. The night I chose myself. So, when I sit at that same dining table today, new tablecloth, different flowers, laughter from someone who appreciates being there, I can finally smile. Because the chapter called Rebecca is over. And the story of my life is still being written. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.